1, 2. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. This is the Hohner YouTube channel. This is the Hohner Live. This is episode 65, which is crazy. Thank you for tuning in. And I'm very much looking forward to the conversation today, because this is actually the first time we're talking, if I remember correctly, which is crazy too. And we're looking forward to your questions in the chat today. Please welcome with me from Oxford, Mississippi, Adam Gussow. I want to see a lot of clapping hands in the chat. Thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Hey, everybody. Oh, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. And especially, in a time, such a stressful time for so many people. Here in the States, we're finally opening up. Nobody's wearing most people aren't wearing masks at this point.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, it feels like, and I've got a gig tomorrow night at a little bar called Taylor Grocery, a little catfish place in rural Mississippi. 2 years ago exactly was our last gig there. It was the day that our NCAA and all the other sports teams in America just said, we're shutting down, COVID, and we're finally back there after 2 years. So it seems like, but still a tough time for you folks over in Europe. So we're with you. We're with you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's see. I mean, things are opening up slowly here too, but masks are still a thing.
Are they? Really? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is hard for harmonica players, right?
Oh,
masks.
very true.
And I remember when the pandemic began, I thought about what it meant to be a harmonica player in a time of COVID. And it's like you play a gig, you're rubbing your hands against your face, you're supposed to shake hands with people, go back and do this, and it's like, how can we do that, right? Hard.
Oh yeah, but that's like a thought that I always had. Like, I try to not shake hands like before a concert, like because like playing harmonica, you're just like taking all of that into your mouth afterwards.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and you're breathing really hard, so it's like being an athlete. And so if you're in a room, I mean, in a sense, the worst kind of situation for live music, for transmission of an airborne disease would be in a place where you're breathing really hard in a close, like a jazz club.
Oh yeah.
Would be right. So it's tough for guys like you. But me, I just kind of got off the grid. I mean, we played outdoors. We did some winter gigs, outdoors, a few summer gigs that way.
True. Or just like thinking about like giving harmonica workshops in a closed room, like indoors, and maybe like working on chugging rhythms without the harmonica. Impossible.
So we have Zoom, which is a great thing.
Yeah. So many people are tuning in. I see a lot of clapping hands, which is awesome. Tell us from where you're tuning in. I feel like Adam doesn't need like too much introduction. I feel like, for me at least, and to many of you out there too, Adam is a living harmonica legend and influenced like more players than anybody else during the past 15 years, uploading harmonica lessons on YouTube. And I mean, I didn't tell you that before, but like also these videos, like I think that was like possibly one of the last videos with Jason Ritchie. I just like rewatched it today, where you two were just like jamming or like checking out some nice licks.
Oh, that's right.
And
that's right. We did
like waiting for that video. That was for me like waiting for the premiere of the Batman movie or something.
Oh my goodness. Well, so 15 years ago, why don't you tell people where you were 15 years ago? What were you?
Oh, I mean, I didn't start playing harmonica back then. I started...
which is incredible. Yeah.
At the age of 14. So more like 11 or 12 years ago.
That's incredible. And I know, maybe I'll put you on the spot, but I know that the kinds of things that you do with overblows. I mean, there's a whole generation that's come along. 2 generations. Jason is another generation, but I feel like a very primitive precursor. There's Howard Levy, the great god, and then there were a couple of us. Carlos Del Junco and I came along at a certain point in the late 80s, early 90s, and began to sort of put this stuff out there. Mike Turk was one of the people who was back, and there's a few others. But I think one of the things that's given me the most pleasure, I think, over the years is realizing that overblows, which I saw as this amazing innovation, not just for jazz players, but for blues players. And I don't really do overdraws either. I'm an overblow guy, but 4, 5, and 6, I don't really hold them very long for the most part. and that now it's sort of just what people can do. Not everybody, and there are certainly some traditionalists here and in other places, I'm sure, around the world, who just really want to kind of technically sort of stop things where little Walter got them to, which is, there's nothing wrong with that in some sense, because he's obviously the great blues player. But it's great to also know that people are continuing to evolve and innovate. And I love what you do with the jazz stuff. You had some of that on just before, which is great. So
yeah, I don't even know if that's jazz. I just like to improvise, so that's it. Like, I don't like to call myself a jazz musician, but yeah, I mean, you and Carlos, you were basically the first two players, like, just incorporating the overblows into, like, the amplified harmonica world.
Yeah, it certainly feels like that to me. That I was not hearing that out there, and I was going to a lot of live music. I mean, it's amazing when I hear people now. Hold on one sec. I want to actually get rid of. I'm going to sign out of YouTube.
Yeah, I can hear the stream a little.
Yeah, I was hearing it a little bit. There we go. And now I'm not hearing it. So, when I was learning my trade in New York in the mid '80s, I mean, I went out and saw, Buddy Guy and Junior Wells. I saw James Cotton. Good God, I've got a story about. There's Cotton's signature on my solo song list. I'll tell the story about that. But and Carrie Bell and Kim Wilson and Rod Piazza and Rick Estrin and Lazy Lester. I'm thinking of all the people that I saw live. I remember seeing Cephas and Wiggins, Phil Wiggins. Seeing Carrie Bell was really early. He had a kind of wildness that I loved. Chromatic and Marine Band, or not Marine Band, but Diatonic. Chromatic and Diatonic. Trying to think, Charlie Musselwhite. So there's a lot of players that are, of course, some who are no longer around. The Cotton and Carrie Bell and Junior Wells. It's great to see those guys. There's nothing quite like them.
Oh yeah.
But here we are. So now we're around and we're trying to keep, in some part, kind of keep alive a sound that we remember. Every time I pick up the harp, maybe I should, maybe people would like a little bit of music, and I'll share something that I was doing just the other day.
Yeah.
If I haven't played harp for a while, it's interesting. What do I do? And so I have a couple of basic grooves. I'll do a shuffle groove, but then there's also a groove that I think of as the Mr. Satan groove. I think of it as the Satan and Adam groove. It's just a straight time. And for me, there's something about kind of hooking back into that groove that does something that I think blues can do, which is it kind of, people talk about the ancestors, but it'll sort of connect me with where I was when he and I were doing it, and who I was when we were doing that thing. A younger, wilder, more exploratory, maybe, time. With all the feelings that I had as a much younger guy. You're a young guy. You got all this stuff. Me, I'm happily married and I've calmed down a lot. But those grooves they're deep, and they sort of,
and they make you want to move, and you are also moving along, which is so important.
Right. And it also reminds me, the thing we don't, when we're talking about playing the harmonica, we often don't talk about those coughs, those vocatives and fricatives and all the sort of noise stuff that happens when you're finding your groove. When I
and I love all of the sounds that
that's Junior Wells. I mean,
yeah.
I can't do it when I'm thinking about it. I can't force it. But if I'm really playing well, that, there's a kind of rhythmic thing. And of course, that's what I got with Sterling McGee, with Mr. Satan, was the rhythmic thing. Was the old, I don't mean to think of it, ain't got that swing. It's like, if you don't, there's different kinds of swing. And so, jumping with Sippany Sid is one kind of swing. But there's also a kind of, there's New Jack swing, I guess, and harmonica has its own funky grooves that swing too. And I think that's something that was, I would say, if somebody were saying, Adam, what's your style? I would say, well, start with that groove and simplify it. I'm always telling harp players who say, I'm getting stale. And I say, well, then just start with this. Here's a well, let's, for the players who don't have that, here's a C harp. Now, what I just did there, that would be that. It sometimes takes a while to get to the thing that you didn't even know you were trying to get to. So that sort of call and response, that do something and then find a variation that best complements it, is something that I think harp players should take more time to do, instead of always saying it's got to be in a 12 bar or an 8 bar or a 16 bar. We can talk about that at some point. But I think those no chord, like one chord grooves.
Yeah.
If you simplify that,
that's also the hardest.
Yeah. Well, is it the hardest? I don't know. I think,
I feel like if you are playing along to a chord progression or like a 12-bar blues, the chords themselves, they sort of tell a story already, and you can just like blow on top basically. And
that's
if
true.
there's like only one chord, you gotta tell the whole story by yourself basically.
That's true, and I'll tell you, one of the things that if I'm playing well in a one chord style, let's just say I'm doing something solo, and I'm just trying to work with it. One of the things I've talked about, things that I owe to different harp players like James Cotton, and we could go through that, and Junior Wells and Magic Dick. One of the things I owe to Kim Wilson, and I haven't ever really talked about this, but one of the things I owe to him is I hear him do something that I find incredibly interesting, which is, and in one interview he said, I really feel free at this point. And I don't know what he meant, but then I began to think about what he does, which is that he will hit the way that he places notes, sort of unexpected notes, not unexpected melodically, just in unexpected rhythmic moments, and then extends them and holds them. Let me see. I'm not gonna copy
somebody
him
just
at all.
subscribed on Twitch. Sorry, that was their sound.
Terrific. So if probably more obvious in a here would be a good example. Let me take an E flat harp, and let me show this in a kind of relaxed blues. So if I'm going, now the way that I hit that 3/6 blow on an upbeat and then held it, and then I have an infinite number of places where I can hold it too.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I think that's something that he doesn't tend to super extend it, but you can he does it in certain ways, and it's an under-described, I think, element of improvisation that I would urge players to think about. Let me see if I can make it happen one more time, just if that's okay. So if I were going, and then sort of leave the space. So the unexpected space. That was just me. I won't say I'm not channeling Kim. I'm just doing. But that technique, that melodic, not technique, but that melodic approach. Sort of leave the unexpected space. And of course, you've got to internalize that 12-bar blues structure and have done that for decades, so that you can sort of begin to work with it and go beyond the sort of obvious moves. But that's one thing I learned from him. I think it's a really cool thing. Anyway, yes, sorry.
Yeah.
Back to ground zero.
But that's like basically what music is about, like just like unexpected stuff. Like that's what keeps it interesting.
And it's
I really
what keeps
like
it
that
interesting.
little. That little lick, this is like very
No, do
signature.
it. Come on. Show me how.
And also just like in general, what I felt like, what I really like too is just that
I
so
do a
many
lot
players
of those.
just go
Yeah.
through like the blues scale and only play the 4 half-step band when they are coming down from the 4-hole draw. But it's a nice little exercise, or like just a nice little reminder of just thinking about just going in there from another hole.
Yeah, well, and so those, I don't know what you call those. Right. Oh, I like that. I like. And of course, you can go. So you can take. Whatever, something like that. This one, I can hear that the 3 and the 6 probably needs to be warmed up a little bit more. But I want to hear you play more. You don't need Gussow playing. Come on,
mine are
Konstantin.
also like very detuned. I gotta send them in.
Here we are we're repping Hohner. This is a Hohner, and we're playing Hohner harmonicas and saying somehow we've blown them out. You know why, everybody? Because we love them so much. We play them a lot.
And we practice
work them
a lot.
hard. We practice a lot because we just love the feel of the. I have to I'll share something with your audience. My son, and some people who are on my YouTube channel know because I talk about him from time to time. My son Sean, who turns 16 in a week, actually, St. Patrick's Day, plays every kind of instrument. He's been playing trumpet since he was 5, on and off, and now he's into euphonium. We just got him a really good euphonium, and they're expensive. But it sounds so good, and I just love sitting. He doesn't play blues. He doesn't improvise. But Dad loves to sit there, and I'll just listen to him do John Philip Sousa marches just forever. He can do all the parts. He'll do the bass trombone part, the different euphonium parts, the French horn. He can sight read. Now, Konstantin, do you sight read? Are you one of these music school guys?
Well, so I started out playing piano, like classically, as a child.
Okay.
But like I never really liked it, or I never took it seriously. Like I actually got paid for the first lessons given by my mother. Then there was like a little concert of like the piano students where I heard somebody play the clarinet, and I liked the sound and started to play the clarinet for some time. I was actually pretty good, but I just didn't practice.
He was the same way with trumpet. He was a really good trumpet player. I would have to say, Sean, just give me 15 minutes a day. Come on. 15. Now he plays the euphonium. He pulls it out into the living room, and it's like, he goes, Dad, I know you want to watch TV, right? You want to watch CNN? No, go ahead, play. Yeah, because I want him to be great. He is great. And now, but finally with the euphonium, he's caught fire. He's only been playing the damn thing for eight months, I think. He's going to Interlochen Arts Academy in the summer for a high-powered kind of, what do they call, low brass? So it's the low brass. If you're curious, I'll share with your audience. So he has his own YouTube channel.
Okay.
It's called Flow Brass, Flow Brass. So that's kind of a cool title. He picked it. Anyway, well, what should we talk about? We're sort of in the middle of it.
But yeah, I mean, that's wonderful. I only started to catch fire like as soon as I heard the harmonica on TV. So, but yeah, up until then I played clarinet and we were playing like some jazzy stuff and we were starting to improvise, but it wasn't very conscious. Like I wasn't really aware of it. what it actually was, and it was just like playing from the sheet, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
And like only afterwards, after I played the harmonica for like 3 years, and I got the clarinet out of the bag again, I noticed, oh wow, I can actually do vibrato on the clarinet. Like nobody taught me.
It's great when that happens. Yeah.
But yeah,
Man.
I started to improvise on the harmonica then during the clarinet lessons, and the teacher knew it was over.
It's over, right? The rest is history. Well,
Yeah.
you know, I started. You said you started. Now you started piano when you were really young. You said.
True. Yeah.
So that's the background for you as a musician. So you learn all the things that are involved in terms, also projecting a melody, sort of out as my son does. You know, he's got that whatever the thing is that's just the melody, and the sheet music isn't the melody, right? The sheet music is just you have to have that feeling and that, and so you had that with piano. And keeping time, and all that feeds in. I started playing guitar and harmonica at the same age, at 16. And so for me, and the advantage of that was, number one, you get a sense of the harmony. You really get the sense of the blues chords. But also the different approach to bending that marks the guitar as opposed to the harmonica. So with the guitar, you get used to taking that flat seventh and bending it up, right? And here, you know, we're used to sort of bending down, right? All bending is down. The overblows jump up. And I think playing guitar and learning how to milk that flat third on the guitar and just visually seeing what it was like to push it up, squeeze it up, helped me think through blues tonality on the harmonica. So the two kind of came together. Although it took a while, I think, I think when you're starting out, you really know how that bending thing works in terms of little like the squeeze thing, that slight you know, I people who've taken private lessons with me know that when I want to teach them how to play that blue third, I'll teach them to sing first. Baby, please don't go, and I'll say, you know, that note, babe.
Yeah, it's definitely important to have like a
rising edge, kind of.
An idea of the note in your mind, or like if you're able to sing it or whistle it, it's even better.
Yeah, and then you know, and hopefully feel it. I mean, hopefully it catches you. And I'll just say that, you know, if you're born to be a blues harmonica player, probably at some point it was just that. The pitches moving around the way they do, you know, should get you. It should just capture your imagination. You should say, as I did, no other music sounds like that. Indian music, occasionally, the ragas sometimes have some of the microtones that seem to track a little bit. I'll just say that of all the students I've had, all the people and anybody who's ever tried to copy my style, I've got a student, I won't name him, but he's in, and he may be listening, in India, who can just really, he can really copy stuff that I can't copy. If you played me the Gussow track, I'd go, that's impossible. I can't. How would you reverse engineer that? You know, I improvised it in real time when I had a whole lot of chops and was just sort of in the passion of the moment. But he's come along and he's like figured all this stuff out, and it's kind of crazy. But I think his ear's really good for that reason. The microtone. I suspect there's something.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
In the air in India, you know, the music just has that stuff in it. Yeah.
There are a lot of questions and comments about rhythm, and I mean, I like to talk about rhythm. And
okay, sure.
I mean, you're really into it, just like thinking about like stomping your feet and playing along with the drum at the same time. And Colin is asking, was this something that come to you like naturally, or did you really work on it? Did you have to practice it a lot? The coordination between the two.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things where I began to sense that there was something to really learn something about rhythm in a particular kind of way was when I first began to play with Mr. Satan, as I knew him, Sterling McGee, the late Sterling McGee. When I first began to go down to 125th Street in Harlem and play with him, we had a third member. We weren't called Satan and Adam. It was just Mr. Satan and Professor 6 Million, a guy named Bobby Bennett, who played the washtub bass. And what I remember is that and Sterling, there was kind of like the downbeat and the upbeat. And what I remember is Professor, there was like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. You know, it's the foundation of American music is that offbeat, that particular kind of syncopation. 1, 2, 3, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, rock. And I find that, so I'm a lefty, and I always hold the harp. I mean, mostly with that hand, right?
Yeah.
Or the cupped. But if I hold it like this, because I can't snap that finger. So,
I
but
see.
if I hold it backwards for me, if I hold it in my right hand. Now, what I realize is there's a number of songs that I recorded with Sterling, or at least a couple, like "Unlucky in Love," which actually I'm doing with my new group with Sir Rod and the Blues Doctors. We haven't recorded it, we haven't released the recording, but we did a version of it, and it's Now Sterling, it's interesting. I can't keep the beat on the offbeat with that one, but Sterling boom. He was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and so that offbeat thing, I would say, is I'm very grooved into, and when I'm able to or encourage, even if you're for players watching, let's say you normally would hold it with your left hand, I'd encourage you to try it just holding it with the other hand and doing something very simple, not that fast. I think I went too fast there. And the moment you feel it getting out of control technically, and I had a little moment there, it's always better to just simplify and say, can I distill the groove down to the absolute, like what's the minimum required to get it to feel really good? Too hard. Now, what starts to feel like I'm getting into the thing that really intrigues me is when you start to do polyrhythms. You start to go, you start to kind of do a little 3 against 2 action, maybe something like. So, for example, when Funky Thing Rides Again, at one point I do that. What's interesting is I'm not really counting it, I'm feeling it. And you always hope you'll come out at the right moment. But, at one point in the recording, and there's a video, we did a sort of music video version of Funky Thing Rides Again, and I'm going, it's... But at one point we're going...
Oh, exactly, I remember.
And I'm always hoping I'll come out in the right place, but I don't always come out in the right place, but if you don't try to overthink it and you feel it, it's good stuff to practice, let's just say. It's good stuff
definitely.
To practice.
Snapping along is awesome.
So does that help? In terms of rhythm, I would say hitting on the 2 and the 4 and learning how to do that, but also a little polyrhythm action, a little 1 or 1, 2, 3, 1. If you're in a what's a good example? If you're in a 4/4 kind of thing, I think I better let that one go. Let me take another question.
But yeah,
we
that's
have
awesome.
time.
I also do like a lot of snapping, try to switch hands and all that stuff, and I feel like it's very important to just like incorporate the body as much as possible, or do like the stuff that at least feels natural to you. Because then it's more like you're like, yeah, especially if you're thinking about playing with a band, you could feel like, okay, I gotta join the rhythm, which is like outside somewhere, like maybe it's the drummer or something, but if you just feel it in your body, you just gotta join the rhythm that's already inside you, which is a way better way of doing it, I feel.
Exactly, yeah, and I think it's way better. And what Sterling used to tell me, he'd go, "Mister, I like the way you enjoy your music," and it was like, meaning, you know, a lot of people, and so the process of learning to become a musician isn't just about learning the technique. It's about disinhibition in a particular way. Now, there's disinhibition. There's sort of like a letting loose. I'm not a big, just say this, I'm not a big Janis Joplin fan, except when she does Mercedes-Benz, which is a funny kind of performance. But you know, she's the sort of let it all loose. Just rip your chest open and let it loose. That's a little different. I mean, I'm talking about skillfully carrying the groove, but putting in enough practice time that when you do that, you can really, I mean, it's just all musical what you're doing, right? It's you're so deep in the groove, because you don't want to get to a place where you're getting so full of feeling that it literally, it's what the Blues Brothers do and they sort of burlesque it when they're in a black church, and John Belushi kind of does flips. He's like out of control, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about fully feeling the groove, feeling it all the way, and not being afraid, not saying I'm going to look silly when I do this. You watch Will Gallison play. He doesn't look silly, but he looks like he's transported by the music, and at the highest level. And he's not worried about if his eyes close, if they're open, if they're half open. It doesn't matter because he's just there with the music. And I think we all respond to people who play like that. Sterling was like that too, and his whole body smiled. He'd often just, it was like a human smile, you know, letting the pleasure out.
Oh yeah,
More
and checking
questions?
out some of your recent videos, or the latest ones, like you were using the metronome a lot too, and
yeah,
I mean that's also a thing. Like I feel like using a metronome can be fun, can be a lot of fun.
It can be fun. It can be fun.
As soon as you start to like, take more responsibility yourself and use it less and less. I mean that's the exercise basically. Maybe cut the tempo in half, so you gotta feel the rhythm inside your body more and more.
That's a great bit of insight. Yeah. And playing songs that you know, and that you normally do at one groove, playing them at a different tempo can be really useful. You know, because as tempos speed up, sometimes you have to simplify. It's like as the car speeds up, you know, you want it a little more aerodynamic, right? And as it slows down, I mean, I felt that the other day, playing. Maybe I should play a little bit of one little thing that I was trying the other day, getting ready for this. But when I do "Every Day I Have the Blues," which is a song I've been playing for years, again on the E flat harp, so it's in B flat. Let me play a little bit now, and I'll play it slower. I'll play it sort of how I was doing it. Is that okay? Can I give people a little bit of a song?
Oh yeah.
Every day I have the blues. Every day, I have the blues. Well, when you see me worried, you I hate to lose. Pack my suitcase, move on down the line. Gonna pack my suitcase, move on down the line. Well, I know you don't love me. Ooh, you ain't crying.
Yeah, I like that little fall overblow in there. It's very jazzy.
Yeah. It's the one jazzy lick I know. You're right. It's jazzy. I threw it in. I figure I've got to have something going on here with you, with a pro like you sitting here. So
wonderful. And I mean, like,
yeah,
I feel like the intonation of your blue notes is like very special. And I'm just like reading the comments in the chat, and Clay
what are they
said,
saying? I need to.
I missed it in the past. Are you blowing the new Hohner Pentaharp?
No, these are off the shelf. I mean, for the most part, I have a couple of Joe Spires. So here's a G, easier to play than the stock Hohner. Sorry. But for the most part, I actually prefer, in most cases, the off the shelf. I do have a Joe Spires D, but no, not the Thunder, not particularly the Thunderharp. Although, what do I have here? Well, I've got the low F. Actually,
but have you tried the Hohner Pentaharp before, like the
Pentaharp? No, I have not. Not the Pentaharp.
Which is tuned to the blue scale, because like that's what I was referring to. Like,
I'm
the
sorry,
blue notes
right,
are built in, so I mean the intonation is kind of fixed, or you can only go lower than.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but it's also nice. I mean, the funny thing is, like, the first thing I did when I got it.
So play it. Yeah, I want to hear.
Yeah. So the nice thing is, like, I mean, it's tuned to the blues scale. This one is an A, so it's A minor. Okay. If you just like continue to play your regular blow draw pattern, you just play the blues scale. That's easy. Everybody can do it as soon as you can play single notes.
But what happens when you do any of the normal? I mean, if you try to play.
Oh yeah, let's do some back and forth playing and compare.
Okay, so I'm gonna get my
interesting.
A, wherever it is. Yes, it certainly will be. Let me find my A. I had them all here. Here we go. So if I go, what would you do that?
Oh, I think you need to. Do you play a D harmonica now?
So I can play a D.
Yeah.
Should I play D? Okay,
yeah.
So that's a D.
I mean, it's all fixed, right? Oh, that's hard for me. I didn't learn this tune.
I know that our audience is enjoying this.
Oh, I can't. I
Right, you
have
don't have
trouble
the
thinking
major.
about like
right?
where to get the major sixth now. Can you play that phrase again?
Right. Let me see. I don't even know what I did. How about that? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I gotta include some bands here.
Sounds really good. But now the off-the-shelf
sound.
person, the person who buys that harp, so we should encourage people. So this is a Hohner model. This is the Pentaharp. This is the new thing. Folks, if you're out there and you're wondering, you've just
Exactly.
wandered into this, you're not harp nerds. So I've never played one of these things that he's playing. Do I point this way? I point this way. Okay. This guy, I don't know how he, but you too can make really cool sounds without, well, no, you'll need a lot of training to sound like what he just did. Right?
I mean, I'm just trying to sound whatever, like expressive, even though the notes are built in. I mean, the nice thing is like you have the blues notes on the draw, so they are still expressive,
Yeah.
and you can bend them down.
Okay. So oh wow.
Sometimes
Okay,
you gotta
I
be
get it.
careful about like the flatted fifth, like it's not like
Right.
a melody note always, right? But it's like completely symmetrical, and you can play all the notes in octaves.
That
Which is
right
nice.
there. That's really cool. Wow.
And the first thing I did though wasn't like playing the blues scale or like improvising. I was looking at the chords, so you have like kind of a suspended A sound on the blow, which is kind of funky.
That's fun. Oh my God, that's great. Yeah. See, I think this is what we do, everybody. This is what harmonica players do. Is that we juke with it, right? It's like there's the stock thing that does all this stuff, but then there's the things you can suddenly. So this isn't a long tradition. Like this is the way bending was in the year 1900, which is like, what are you doing? This is a German-made instrument designed to play pa music. What are you doing playing blues? Now you're playing like progressive jazz on a thing designed to make the blues stuff easy, which is kind of cool actually when you think about it. Yeah.
And then on the draw you have like a C minor, which is like a little odd and funky too.
Oh my God.
And I just started to beatbox. I'm not a beatboxer, I can't do it, but it was
That's
nice to work
cool.
with the chords.
All right. You got me, man. Wow. Oh man. Have you
kinda
recorded
nice.
any of this stuff? That is really nice.
Nothing,
Wow.
no.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
But it's kind of fun, and you can play like in the key that is like a minor third above, very nicely too. So in the key
so
of C
there's
minor.
all of this stuff. So it was designed to make it easy for beginners to play blues.
Yeah.
And here you are just juking with it. I think this is amazing.
This is actually way more expressive. And you have the minor chord there.
Right. Oh my God! I'm having my mind blown by these
There are
sounds.
a
Let me
lot
do
of
something.
fun
I'm going to
things to
do
do.
something just slightly irregular now. I'm going to for just a moment because I'm going to pull out a very unusual harmonica, but I want to play it with my video off. So I'm turning my video off. I'm here,
Okay.
but you can't see me. And I'm going to play the following. How did he do that? Well, you know, you figured out what I did, of course, is that I had two harps, and I didn't do it very well. I've got two F sharps. So I've got a low F sharp and an F sharp.
Oh yeah.
But there's a recording that I did, Blues for Ida. You know, Tom Walbank's. There's an epic kind of CD. Just put in Blues for Ida. Maybe put in I don't know. My name's in it, Tom Walbank. But there's like a zillion harp players. I don't know if you were on that. Maybe you were. A lot of people were on this. Okay. But I did. I thought, God, there's so many great players. I've got to have something that new, something different. And I thought, well, why don't I see if I can go seamlessly from like it's supposed to be for using low harps. So I thought, let me take I get a low F sharp, low F sharp, which is an unusual harp. And then a regular F sharp, which is a high harp. Just it's 1/2 step above an F, so it's sort of at the high extreme of non-high harps. And I thought, let me see if I can do it so seamlessly that it really does sound like one big long harp. And I managed to do that after some experimenting. I didn't do it very well here, but that's cool, you know. But you make me feel like a piker, Konstantin, because I mean, you just did so many interesting, new, novel things.
That's the new harmonica.
My time is over.
I mean, I feel like I was never like really into like checking out alternate tunings, but I mean, this one is kind of fun. I don't know.
It is fun, yeah. So you don't. I mean, I don't do the alternate tunings really, and I don't play fancy harps. But it sounds like, and you have the chops to be able to do that. It's really cool. You should record what you were just doing. I mean, I think the beatbox thing, those weird chords that don't sound quite like anything else. That's what I was looking for, which is like, if you know harp, I was playing for the people who know harp. You know that's not normal, right? P.T. Gazelle does some of these things on his harps, and of course Brendan Power with his. So there's a lot of that stuff out there. We're at a great time for harmonica, I think. But I'm glad that Hohner has done this. As you know, I talk about this a lot. I started on Hohner marine bands. This will be the commercial thing. I started at the age of 16 in 1974.
I mean, mine are marine bands too, basically. It's like,
you know, I'm still playing them. It's really unusual, I think. I mean, and let me tell you, having just written the check for my son's, really nice euphonium, much bigger check than for even the best custom harmonica. Let me just say. It's unusual that the pros, like you or me, people who are sort of out there and gigging and recording, would play an instrument that's also a recommended instrument for beginners. I think that's very unusual, and that's one of the things that makes Hohner and KHS. Hohner's a very special company that way, having made this instrument on which all of this great classic repertoire was made. And by the way, you didn't ask me, and they didn't ask me to do a commercial. I'm just doing a commercial because it's a good chance.
Yeah.
We have some people out here.
Nothing.
I know
and like also, it never feels like a commercial for me to talk about Hohner because like, it's just the harmonica to me.
Yeah.
See the instrument I play. But yeah, there's
More
like so much online material out there right now, educational and so many harmonica players. I mean, at least you can see everybody now because we're connected online. But back when you started 15 years ago, like, was that like a very conscious decision? Did you know that you were like kind of the first person to do that?
Here's what I can do. I can tell you what the horizon was like. If you had tuned in, as I did, to YouTube in January of 2007, let's say.
Yeah, because I can't imagine.
Well, I can tell you what I found. So what I found was there was a clip of James Cotton in a blue shirt sweating hard and playing. There were a couple of clips of Sonny Boy Williamson. There was a clip of Big Walter Horton. Sort of live clips. He was on a sound stage, I think, as part of the American Folk Blues Festival. So there were a few of clips like that. There was John Gindick, who had Jam Camp '06. That was the name of his channel. I think it's still around. And he had some clips where he was just strumming guitar and playing and talking harp. And most notably for me, I think, was Ronnie Shellist, who had Funky Blues Harmonica. That clip was
Oh,
there
yeah.
before anything I ever did, and he was just playing along. He had a, he had a mic of some kind, and he was just sort of playing along to a jam track. And that was it. Was so he wasn't teaching exactly; he was just jamming along. But it was some of the most. And I had not heard of Ronnie Shellist at that point. Later on we got together and did some jam camp type things of our own, some workshops, the Gussow Cellist thing. But so there was nothing like that. There was very little in the way of straight up instructional material, and I think that's why I kind of got. And people can go back and I called it Blues Harmonica Secrets Revealed. It was on I have two channels. It was on my other channel. So the original, it was called the Dirty South Blues Harp channel, and then I think I decided I should have brand consistency, so I called it the Modern Blues Harmonica channel. And I think I did 40 videos in 40 days. I began with, knowing zero. Here's something that's not commonly noticed. So when I began in February of 2007, YouTube was strictly non-commercial. Could not monetize. There was no monetization. You couldn't have anything that suggested it was being used for commercial purposes. So movies did not premiere with YouTube trailers and stuff. Nothing like that. Nobody was selling anything. You weren't allowed to. That changed. I went back later, and it changed in April of that year. So within a couple of months after I started. But I had a video early on where I wore a kooky hat and a kooky shirt and called it the Church of Blues Harmonica thing, and then held up a sign and said, you can send donations if you'd like to my church. I was trying to basically play around with the fact that it was not commercial. And I got myself a little P.O. box at that point in Oxford, Mississippi, where I live. Because people were saying basically, you've done 30 videos in 30 days. We want to send you money. And I thought, so I got a box, but people said, get a PayPal account. And then I got, that first week, a lot of pent up, I got hundreds of dollars. Yeah. I was opening envelopes and I was like, oh my God, I'm getting more than my salary as a college professor. There could be something here. It was a very strange moment. And of course, the donation thing sort of ran out fairly quick, but I built a website. It was a website. I said, I'm going to call it something. I'll call it Modern Blues Harmonica. And it was good for 10 days. No payment required for 10 days. And then they start charging. I said, well, I'll do a website. I'll figure out how to put a PayPal icon. I didn't really know how to do all that stuff. And I didn't know how to upload. I didn't know what wireless networks were. I didn't have internet access at home. But when I went outside, held my laptop up, and then I had this new laptop, and it had, I guess it was Wi-Fi, and I was stealing bandwidth from somebody in the neighboring apartment building, basically. Yeah. I didn't know that. I didn't even know how those things worked. I was incredibly primitive. So those were the early days. Those were the early days. And the rest is history. Modern Blues Harmonica, the website's still around. It looks very circa 2007, honestly. It could use a little TLC that way. But what's amazing, I think, is the amount of material that's out there now. Chris McCulloch, the late Chris McCulloch, began to do some wonderful videos, where he talked about vibrato, for example. It did not occur to me that, which is, the vibrato moving the mouth, which is the way horn players might. My son does that when he plays euphonium. It's not how I did vibrato, but I saw him doing it on the high notes, and I thought, well, that sounds much better than what I'm doing. Which was just modulating with my throat. Yeah, that sounds fine on the low draw notes, but it doesn't sound very good on the high blow notes. And so I learned stuff. That's the other thing that happens is everybody begins to find their way to YouTube, and then pretty soon what happens is this 16-year-old kid from Memphis whose handle is SuperChucker777, I think it was, whose name turns out to be Brandon Bailey, comments on a YouTube video that I had about Whammer Jammer, and one thing leads to another. And it turns out, well, he's in Memphis, I'm here, and he says, I'm going to be in a competition here, a sort of youth competition. Why don't you go, a star search competition? Would you come up and check me out? And I thought, okay, so that's the other weird thing about the Zoom world now, the YouTube world, is that it can create real community. It can actually make real human connections. That's what we did with Hill Country Harmonica. We sort of said, we're going to use YouTube to bring people in the real world to a real world location where we're going to become real to each other and have a kind of, a meeting, a powwow, a sort of a group convocation. And then we're going to go back to our separate worlds, but we're going to have made all these connections. And I think it's wonderful when that happens. So different world now than it was.
Oh yeah, it's
Yeah.
crazy. I mean, because like YouTube was my teacher, or like also like the Modern Blues Harmonica forum, just like posting
That's
my
right.
video or my recording and getting some feedback there.
Yeah. And things now I should, by the way, let people know. So there is a modern blues harmonica forum. It's much smaller in a sense than it used to be. There was a sort of high point, I think. But there's also a modern blues harmonica Facebook group started by a couple of people who met on the forum and decided to do this. And they said, can we just use that name? I said, fine. So I have nothing to do with it, but it's amazing. It's huge now, right? It's in the tens of thousands of people. So it's become a great place. And I think one thing that does, when I was learning back in the 70s, every town had the guy who was the greatest blues harmonica player in the world, or thought he was. Yeah. We're all familiar with that guy, And sometimes they abuse the sound, but it can be very fast in certain ways, and maybe, but not usually. It's not, they haven't gone out on the road with Jimmy Rogers, the way Steve Geiger did, right? I mean, there's a world of really good harmonica players who are pros and trained. Then there's just sort of the guy in town who seems to play really well, right? And really, now everybody around the world can check out everybody else if they want, if they just have that connection. And so a kid who's 10 years old can say, I want to know who the best in the world is, and I want to know who the best. And then suddenly they're there. It's not that hard to find the standard. So I do think that for people who want to, and this is true not just in harmonica, it's true in all instruments. I mean, that people can see. When my kid was playing trumpet, we'd go in and put best 10-year-old trumpet player, because I was just curious, how good are they? And you see some kid out in Hawaii, and maybe he's playing two trumpets, at the same time. I mean, so you can see all kinds of things and realize. And I think it's created a kind of hothouse environment, which does nevertheless lack one particular thing. And here I'm talking to the audience too, which is this sort of mentoring relationships that you have with older people in person, where those are still invaluable, I think. I think it's hard to do it all virtually, hard to do it all. You've got to play gigs. You've got to get out there and know how to make your sound in different rooms. Tomorrow night, it's one of the only gigs that I do, this catfish place, Taylor Grocery in Taylor, Mississippi. I don't use amplification, so it's one of the very few gigs I do where I'll play a little percussion with my feet, but can't be very loud because it's a quiet room. My guitar player will play electric, but not very loud, and I'll play acoustic harp on the mic.
Yeah,
it's good training. It's good training for me. But you've got to know how to produce your sound in different rooms and really respond to the audience, which is something and get a sense for what audiences want. And that, at least that the kind of music I make, we will sometimes change it up. I'll say, look, let's do Elvis. We'll do That's All Right, Mama. Should I play a little something?
Oh yes, please.
I don't want to force myself on people, but I figure they want a little bit of music. So, That's All Right, Mama is of course Elvis Presley. Was Arthur Big Boy. I pronounce it Crudup because that's how Bobby Robinson, the great black producer in Harlem, used to pronounce it. He goes, yeah, Arthur Big Boy Crudup. So it looks like Crudup. Well, that's all right now, Mama. That's all right for you. That's all right now, Mama. Any way you do, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right now, Mama. Any way you do. Well, Mama, she done told me, Papa told me too. That girl you're loving, oh, she ain't no good for you, but that's alright. That's alright. That's alright now, mama. Anyway you do. I'm going to end right there, I think, just so I don't, but not full-length concert, but that's what we do. And it needs the guitar, I'll be honest. That it's not a 12 bar.
Yeah.
Change a little different, and it needs a little guitar behind it. For a period of time, as you know, I was a one-man band, right? But I like having a guitar player. I'm back to harmony now, and not just the one-man stuff. So,
yeah,
more
that's
questions,
wonderful.
maybe?
I mean, this is like a little add to sort of. We have these challenges going on like every month, and maybe we should do like a solo harmonica kind of groove challenge soon. That would be a wonderful topic. So the next one is a classical harmonica challenge, actually. End of this month with CY Leo, who's like the chromatic virtuoso on the chromatic, or in the classical world, from Hong Kong. And this time, I don't remember the prizes. You can usually win like harmonicas.
So who judges the competition?
It's usually me and like a special guest, like who's like an expert at the topic.
Well, if you decide at some point in the future that you want to do a one chord groove kind of thing, and you want me to guest judge, how many will I have to listen to? Is it 1,000? How many entries do you have?
So
200.
I set up like a Discord server, which is also kind of a forum, and I think we have like 500 members right now. Check out the description box, everybody. You can join us, the Harmonicats Discord server. So people can upload their recordings there, and I mean, there are a lot of submissions sometimes. So usually there's like a pre-selection, and it's just a popular vote, and we listen to 5 recordings from each category, so beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and pick like 3 winners, like 1 from each category.
Oh, cool. But you're saying the forum itself, they kind of upvote and downvote so that you have a sense of sort of what the top candidates are from sort of public acclaim kind of stuff?
Exactly.
Really cool.
Yeah, you can be a beginner player, but if you have a lot of fans out there, you can win the competition.
That's not good. That's not fair, but it says something, you've got...
But I mean, I was never really unhappy about the winners, so it's nice.
Well, cool. Are there other questions? I'm not actually on the YouTube thing, so I can't see
there
the
were so many questions in the beginning. I mean, I lost track. But I mean, what we talked about is very true. That there's so much stuff that you can, only learn like in real life and on stage, and it's just stuff that you can't learn online.
Yeah, and I think when I talk to people about the sort of process of sort of moving on up, right? Jam sessions are important. They are a key kind of thing, but as I've discovered, the better you get, in a sense, the potentially riskier the jam session is, because you're only as good. The ensemble's only as good as the worst player up there, especially in terms of the rhythm section. So if you get up and there's a bass player who's just lagging, or a drummer who is just lagging, it can really, you might not groove. Or if there's a guitar player, we harmonica players love to complain, obviously, if there's a guitar player who's playing loud and aggressively and leaving no space for the harp. If you're a player with taste, I never forgot this. Years ago, I read something in Guitar Player. It might have been with Larry Carlton, or it was with some player known for being really tasty. Maybe a great studio player, and Larry is, but it was somebody else who did not have a big name that way. But he was a great studio player that was known as that. And he said, sometimes people will send me a cut and say, I want some guitar on it, I need sweetening. And he goes, and if I listen to it and I say it doesn't need anything from me, I'll send it back and I will charge them my usual fee and tell them that, and they will pay. Which I thought was really interesting. I never forgot that. What do you read in a music magazine from 30 years ago that you remember, But I thought, that's interesting. So that's what it means to be tasty, is that you're honest enough without ego. I'm not, this thing doesn't need me. It kind of has what it needs. I don't think I'd have the nerve to say it doesn't need harmonica. Besides, harmonica players think everything needs harmonica, but no, actually, it doesn't always need harmonica. And I've been on stage in jam sessions with a female singer, for example, a really good singer, where for whatever reason, and maybe it was the song they were playing, that I just, I don't think Purple Rain needs harp, but maybe you'd have something to play on it. I don't think I would. But there are songs that don't actually need harp. You could do harp on them, but they don't need it. Occasionally, I've been in situations with singers where I just think, I like it just the way it is. So I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to do whatever you do when you're on stage and you decide you're not going to play. Try not to draw too much attention to yourself, but go groove along with it.
True. Yeah. I like to produce music right now. It's almost exclusively Afrobeat kind of music, but it's the worst thing to force harmonica into every production or something so.
Well, and that's one thing that you discover when you go and you watch a guy like Charlie Musselwhite or Kim Wilson is they don't necessarily play on every single cut, right? And it's such a hard lesson to learn, which if you're especially for harmonica players, how to produce.
It's like a disease, like guitar players. They don't have to stop playing as you have to do with a saxophone or something. You gotta get air in at some point.
You gotta get air in, right? And so learning how to leave a little more space rather than a little less space, probably really important for harmonica players to think about. Because the problem is you're not. It's fine if you play really aggressively on a couple of tracks in a row, but you do need to let a set breathe. Not just let the song breathe, but let the set breathe, and that's why I really envy the people who are great crossover. They can play diatonic, they can play chromatic. Now, they can, if they want to play the big bass harp, that's fine. I never want to get near one of those things again. I had to buy one of those when I played with Big River, because I had one or two places in the Broadway show, which I did on the road back in the mid to late 80s. And I only had just starting from the fifth below. What is it? Whatever. I would do that line. And I couldn't get it right every night. So, you have to be perfect because you're hanging out there and there would be nothing else. The orchestra is all silent when you're doing this particular thing. And it depended on humidity. So God bless the people who can actually play those things consistently and never miss a note. For me, maybe my chops as a diatonic player just weren't good enough to get that big, low, resonant kind of thing. So,
yeah.
Anyway.
So there are many questions. Maybe we can do a quick run through.
Run through. Let's do that. Yeah.
To wrap this off, I also have one last question, which is, how to stay excited about harmonica? How do you stay excited about harmonica player? And there's so much stuff out there. What are you looking for right now? What would make you excited?
Well, it's interesting. In this particular moment, with my new trio, some of your audience would know this, not everybody, which is, for many years, obviously, I was part of a duo called Satan and Adam. And then I've been with Alan Gross, the guitar player, as the Blues Doctors since 2012, almost 10 years. But in the last couple of years, I ended up partnering with Sterling McGee's, Mr. Satan's nephew, Rod Patterson. Sir Rod, as he was known in Atlanta circles.
And he's singing, right?
And he's singing. So he's singing. He's a pro dancer too. So he's a real front man who doesn't play an instrument. He plays a little keyboard, but not with us. And so he's out there just as a singer. So I really enjoy being part of a rhythm section behind him. It means that I'm not doing as much singing alternating with harp like I did here just now. It means that I'm actually playing more harp in some ways, as in a sort of background, laying down the background. But you said what excites me? I would say what excites me then is what I'm doing with him, which includes some songs that are not normal harmonica songs, like I Feel Good. What excites me? Trying to get that right. I think I feel good. So good. So good. Because I got you. Da, 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 da. Trying to be the drummer.
Oh yeah.
And the harp player and get that right.
Yeah, that's actually perfect for the harmonica, like that D.
Well, it is, yeah.
9 arpeggio.
Yeah. Right. And then you go. And I'm just missing notes right and left. So that's, the low harps continue to bedevil me. But you say, what gets me excited? I think I just showed you, which is material that is a little trickier, that where you feel good about getting it right, where you're working at the kind of that it's just tricky. It's tricky. It's like a tricky band thing. And so that actually excites me now. I'm not the wild solos and stuff. It's not quite the same. And also I'm playing drums. So I'm keeping the rhythm going. And what's amazing is we had a gig where we played a 2-hour set. I used to think that we couldn't even do an hour and a half. Me and Alan have occasionally done 90-minute sets. But we did 2 hours, and we felt, a little bourbon helped, honestly. It sort of got us really in the groove. But that becomes possible when you're having fun. And I think that's actually when the energy level feels like it's high, you're doing the right thing. And when you feel not fully plugged in, he asked a great question. It needs one more little bit of answering, which is from Joseph Campbell, the philosopher who wrote The Hero with 1,000 Faces. And he's the guy who said, follow your bliss. What he meant was, follow your passion. Trust your passion. So if there's something that intrigues you and you think you're a blues player, but suddenly you're getting into country, if that intrigues you, then go with that. Sterling McGee talked about that all the time. He would say, if I don't feel like playing, I won't be a slave to my guitar. He said, if I don't feel like playing it, I'm not going to play it. And then when I feel like playing it, I'm going to play it, which is very zen. And I think trust those quiet voices. Trust if there's something in you that says, I'm stale right now, walk away. Walk away for a little while. Then come back. You can't force music. I've often said, if somebody wants to make music, you can't force somebody to play if they don't want to play. And if they want to play, it's really hard to stop them from playing. They're going to sneak out, right? Trust that means they're following their bliss. And sometimes the bliss isn't there. You're stale. And so, but one other thing might be, I'll give you an example. How I got into the one-man band. This is an important answer. I'm going to play something that's not typical blues harmonica stuff. When I was first starting to become a one-man band, I was listening with very different ears. Like, what can I do? And I found the version of Stevie Wonder with the Muppets doing Superstition. I think or on Sesame Street. I think it was Stevie Wonder. There's an amazing version of Stevie Wonder. I think it's on Sesame Street. And I said, I think if I have my A flat harp, he's playing an E flat, dun dun dun, on Superstition. It's tough.
Yeah.
that's perfectly in line with the kind of stuff that I used to do with Sterling. We never did that song, but it's perfectly in line. The heavy rhythmic emphasis, the notes are straight up blues scale stuff. With and then you're just listening with open ears, and you're adapting. And I think for harp players, what I would say is like I'm telling my son, adapt Uptown Funk to the euphonium. And we went online and we found that a guy had done that, and he was beating. You can find Uptown Funk euphonium, and a guy has a what do you call one of those boxes that creates loops. The guy looped, and so first he's like slapping it, and then he does one line and does another line. So I'm not a looper, but what I'm saying is trying to adapt the music that's actually out there, or that's not part of the blues harmonica tradition or the blues tradition, like Superstition, but just is waiting there for you because it's all blues.
True.
Right?
I remember that video of Jason Ritchie playing the Rihanna song "Stay."
Did he do that? I don't know the song.
Yeah, it's like a ballad kind of.
Yeah.
Had a ballad kind of feel, very bluesy and very tasteful, and.
Yeah, trust that. If you like that music and you're a harp player, say. So I would challenge every harmonica player listening now. What non-blues song is out there? I can think of one more that I did as a kid.
But like thinking about Superstition, I did record this song too.
Did you?
But thinking about pentatonic and like blues scale, you could play that on the Pentaharp.
Can you? I'll bet you can.
I want to play it with octave.
Fantastic.
Kind of works.
Right. It kind of works. And not only that, but as a harp player, you're not required to play every single note. That Stevie did, right? He's with this on a clavichord or whatever it is. You don't have to do that.
That's actually like a perfect like ad for the Pentaharp. Like that piece should be like part of like every video.
Check this out. Oh, wait. Now, years ago, that's the Wild Wild West theme song. Years ago, I used to do. Then I actually went recently and listened. It's like, wait a minute. It's much hipper than I used because I didn't know how to overblow back in the day. So, I adapted it. My point is, it works either way, right? You don't actually, if you can't overblow, you don't have. There's certain things you can do, modifications you can make, that would let anybody listening to it go, oh, I know that melody, right? So perfection isn't required, just doing your best. And in the act of translating, you create something new, and you're also following your passion. Konstantin, I'm good for another couple of questions. I tend to answer long, and then I've got to run. I actually got to get back to campus and be Dr. Gussow again.
Oh, yeah. Let's do the quick run through. I'm a beginner. Which harmonica should I buy?
Hohner Marine Band is the only answer.
Okay.
But of course, what do you do? So, let me ask you. I'm sure you get people who say, I know the Marine Band is a celebrated harp and a lot of great music's been made on it, but I've heard that it swells up and cuts your lips. It absorbs spit. And so what's your answer to that with somebody?
Wow.
Have you ever had that problem with the Marine Bands? Because I used to. I don't anymore. They don't do that.
I mean, mine are customized, so they are plastic. But I do love like wooden combs, so that's why I prefer the Marine Band always. I just have like special 20 cover plates on them.
Oh, okay.
Because I like the closed cover plates.
Yeah.
So yeah, I usually just like suggest a special 20 or like a rocket amp.
Right. And I suggest that a player who is a beginning player get a couple of different models or makes. I mean, there's of course a half dozen reputable. We're not going to name other harmonica manufacturers on this channel, but it's not hard to find. Be willing to get a good basic. I was going to say professional grade. In other words, don't try it on one of those cheapo plastic stocking stuffer things that you get in a dollar store.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not fun to play them.
Do not do that. So that's all I would say is do not do that. But there's a handful of obviously top flight manufacturers apart from Hohner. But I think Hohner has a lot of models, and I would encourage players to not assume that they know their model right away. That to try several. So I think Special 20, Marine Band. There's the Hohner Blues Band. There's also, of course, the Hohner Blues Harp, which I think is different today than it used to be. I bought some of those when I was learning years ago, and the difference between them and the Marine Band was that they were made. It felt like softer reeds, so they would bend quicker, easier. They'd also get a little mushy. I think they're made different now. In other words, they'd in effect age more quickly. Was my feeling about them, but they were fun, and so. They're made different now. I think they're a little. They last longer now.
Yeah. I also checked out other brands and then started on a blues harp, like the regular MS, and Marine Band.
Okay,
and then I got into Golden Melodies, and then
there you go.
What I play now. Yeah. Adam, do you ever pick up the Chromatic?
I've got a Chromatic, and it's in the other room. I'm not going to jump up and get it, but I do. Maybe I'll jump up and get it. Why don't you? I'll be back. Hold on. I do play.
So yeah, this is the time for me to announce the next Twitch Harmonica Challenge again. So the Classical Harmonica Challenge with CY Leo, Classical Harmonica Virtuoso on the Chromatic from Hong Kong. That's the last Sunday of this month. Which should be Sunday, March 27th.
No, I bought the Chromatic. I got the Chromatic so that I could somehow learn to do fingertips.
Yeah.
I have that Stevie wannabe thing, and I just and so I keep hoping because I love fingertips part 2. The fingertips thing and the way it sounds with the whole orchestra. And my dream is that Sir Rod and the Blues Doctors, it basically can do a version of that at some point, and that Alan can somehow sound like a whole orchestra. I don't think one electric guitar can do that, but that's my dream. It's just at some point, and then if I know that we can do it, then I will practice my butt off. I used to play a few tunes. Here, there's one. I have one original. Something like that. I had a song that I've used as a sort of bumper music a few times. I haven't played it in years, called Blues for Houston P. Something like that. Not being self-indulgent here. Point is, I have one melody to my name on the Chromatic, and I really ought to learn how to play it before embarrassing myself in public. Anyway, everybody, see, you too can follow your bliss, and show off poorly.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I have to play more stuff in third position, like also major stuff. I'm doing that too.
I don't do much.
Not too
You
frequently.
play in third? You
Yeah,
play in
but
third?
not too often.
That's
Like
that's what
major
that
pieces.
all was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't really do much.
Um,
Except funky thing, I guess. More questions.
more
Let's get them out of the way,
questions.
and
Yeah.
then I've got to scram. Yeah.
What was the favorite video that you uploaded?
I'll tell you, actually. Well, in terms of, it's so funny because the first thing I thought about was music video. So I really love the version of Thunky Thing that we managed. Thunky Thing
yeah.
Rides Again. that we managed to get in the studio with the help of Rachel Farrow, who was producing the session. And then the way that Brian Ward, my buddy here in town, who very much an amateur, video guy, but he got a Caleb Mitchell, a dancer at the University of Mississippi, and we got my young son. And so we have the dancer and the harmonica player and this young kid, kind of all in a dance of discovery and fun. And it for me, it was like the absolute perfect way to dramatize the feeling in this song. And so for me, it was, I would say I just get great pleasure every time I see that, because I think the right amount of digital delay on this thing. And then here's one little interesting thing. This is a nerdy kind of music producing thing. After we'd recorded the song in the studio, Rachel Farrow, but this is before mastering, we did it digitally, digital on Pro Tools, digitally. And then she put the entire thing through, she actually put the entire recording through an analog tape deck. I don't know how that works.
Yeah.
But what it did was it softened. So this is a song that has a whole lot of highs. I mean, it's all high end. It's a D harp, right? And I'm playing. It has a lot of highs, and yet they got softened just the right amount, because you want to be very careful when you're recording harmonica high notes. You don't want to peak. I may even be peaking the mic a little bit just playing. In terms of favorite harmonica lesson, it's interesting. I don't go back and watch my own lessons, or rarely, very rarely. But the other day, just for the heck of it, I went back and found one that seemed to catch people's imaginations more than almost anything else I did, which was, I think it was one of the ones that for whatever reason got sort of briefly yanked, and I had to put it up on, because I wanted it out there. It was called North Mississippi Front Porch Blues Harp Lesson, and it was made at this time of year, back in 2007. It was sort of early in my whole YouTube thing. I'd only been doing videos for about 3 weeks, and I thought, well, I'm going to do a video where I show people how to play the Nat Riddle style, which is nice and slow blues and leave some space. And it was on a day when we lived in a little rental house, my wife and my kid and my infant and I, and everybody was leaving, and I was sitting on my front porch, people were packing up, and I felt very self-conscious, did not want to play super loud. And so I sort of said, I got very intimate with the camera. And then I went, something like that, with just a foot and space. And for whatever reason, I think maybe because most people think harp is so, that's sort of the public's impression, right? That's the greatest harp player in town. That's his thing. He jams, that other way of playing, which had moved me so much when my own teacher, when Nat Riddles did it, I think I somehow managed to kind of caught the right energy for that thing. And then I sort of slowly kind of told people, and in a sort of understated voice, not my normal voice, but the way I'd be if I were on my back porch and I knew that there were people right there and there and there, and you'd sort of get it. So that's my favorite video, I would say. Early on was that particular one. Yeah.
Wonderful. Oh yeah, this is not a quick run through, but okay. Rod is asking, do you think that your academic career has helped you become a better musician?
Ooh. There's one specific way in which it absolutely has, but in a very unexpected way. At one point, I got an email from a woman named Margaret Burnham. She's a law professor at the Northeastern School of Law, and does a sort of she does a thing called the Restorative Justice Project, I think, in which she and a group of law students go and investigate cold cases in the U.S. South, most involving black folks who had a father or an uncle, or where there was some basic racial violence, lynching or something else really troubling and unresolved that really hurt a community and a family. Margaret Burnham, when she was young, was Angela Davis's attorney, the famous Angela Davis, free Angela Davis. She was one of her attorneys. So she sort of moved on to do this. And she emailed me. She said, "You've got a book that I read called Seems Like Murder Here, Southern Violence and the Blues Tradition." She goes, "That's how I heard about you." She says, "But I know you're a harmonica player. And would you think about helping us with the soundtrack for this film?"
Oh, yeah.
And she goes, so in a sense, she said, what it'll mean, and so I said, wait a minute. So I thought about this, and I said to you want me to put evocative blues music underneath the voices of Southern black folks who are talking about horrible acts of racial violence that have hurt their families. And I thought I thought to myself, that's incredibly challenging. Like and thank you. I thanked her. I said, well, I'd like to try it. So send me what you got, and I'll go to the studio. And I went with Brian. You said, has my scholarship helped my playing? What I'll say is that it helped me meet Margaret Burnham, who then presented me with just about the most challenging musical assignment that a blues harmonica player of whatever race could be gifted with, which is, here's a chance to sort of try to feel this and do this. And we got the right kind of sound in the studio, and then I don't remember whether she showed me the clips or whether it was, here's what this needs to be behind. I think it was more like almost descriptive, so I didn't actually see the people talking or hearing, but I think they had a sort of a script. And then I just sent her a series of different things, and it led me to go, you talk about the blues pitches, it led me to really reach hard. You can find this. It's called The Trouble I've Seen. So, and it's actually, you can find it, I think it's on one of my websites, under Blues Talk. If you go to the Blues Talk, put in Blues Talk Gussow, there's a homepage on Modern Blues Harmonica for the Blues Talk series. And I think it's at the bottom. I have a link for this. It's a fascinating video. There's another harmonica player who did a little bit of it. But yeah, so that's a way in which, kind of totally unexpectedly, I was presented with a really deep challenge. And got it done. But it's tough work, that is. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Good question, though.
Last question by Rocky. Should I soak my harp in whiskey before playing? Asking for a friend.
Okay. So when I was 16 or 17, the night that I saw James Cotton at the Rockland Community College opening for the Jay Giles Band, the night that my first girlfriend said, "We're through, Adam. We're through. It's not working out," where I was incredibly euphoric and incredibly brokenhearted at the same time, I remember going into the men's bathroom and running the harp underneath this, turning on the water, and there were the guys, taking their leaks and doing what they do in the middle of a concert, and I'm just brokenhearted, but I want to show off. I just want to play my instrument. And I just needed to unburden. And so, you put it under the water and you shake it out. So you don't need whiskey. I've never actually used whiskey. I know some people may do that. If you use whiskey, it's going to smell like whiskey for the rest of its life with you. So if you put water in it, it's just what's going to happen is it's going to play really well and kind of, it's going to get high, basically. It's going to play with surreal intensity and a little wildness, a lot of wildness, and then it's going to dry out. It's going to wake up in the morning with a hangover. If it's a wooden comb thing, the wood's going to maybe sink a little bit below the surface, right? The serotonin receptors have been compromised. You're going to need to soak it again, shake it out, and eventually the harp will die. Well, so in the long run, you shouldn't be doing that. But I would absolutely think it's worth an experiment. And so if you have a harp where you've blown out one of the notes at some point, try the water thing and see what happens. If you had nothing to lose, if you decide we're going to throw the harp out anyway. You don't need to do that. I did that though with the A harp for years, and eventually weaned myself away from it, and now I don't need to do it. But yeah.
Okay.
So, no whiskey. I don't think whiskey. Just drink the whiskey is the thing. Yeah.
I never tried it myself, but I gotta look for a harp that's like broken or something.
Oh man, yeah. It's wild. I mean, they play wild and woolly if they're wooden harps. Man, I gotta go. I want to thank everybody.
Thank you for taking the time to join us. That was a lot of fun. Next Hohner Live
it sure was.
is on, let's see, March 24th, 31st with Ross Garon, who's a multi-instrumentalist, harmonica player. He composed music for big bands for the new PS5 game Gran Turismo 2. Major work. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. All right.
Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Thank you, Adam. Have a wonderful day or evening ahead from wherever you're tuning in. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.